joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So are you excited for tomorrow?
Oh, I guess excited is one word, yes.
So what are you most excited to hear about tomorrow?
What amazing.
What are you most excited to hear about tomorrow?
I think, one, the infrastructure. I'm very anxious to hear what we'll be doing with the $5 billion and what the governor's proposal is, because I definitely have some thoughts on that. I want to make sure we are maximizing jobs. Beyond that, I think it will be education and some of the investments. It's a first time in this governor's tenure that we're going into the new year with a surplus, and that's really important to make sure we invest it wisely.
So what did you think of the governor's proposals for infrastructure today?
I think it's really important that we make sure youth are addressed there, that we make sure that we are addressing the bridges, roads, the sewers that aren't as glamorous but are very important, but that we make sure that there is a pipeline addressed so that we are ensuring that entry-level workers and youth are getting these jobs and getting the exposure to these important jobs. But then I'd also like to see nonprofit infrastructure. They're the community-based organizations that have a leaky roof everywhere you go or a mismatched chair, and I want to make sure we're doing some infrastructure there, as well as a tiny bit for after-school funding.
And by youth, do you mean new college grads or people coming out of high school?
Absolutely.
Both?
New youth, college grads, as well as those who are entry-level workers who may not be as skilled. But if we invest in infrastructure that includes, for instance, energy upgrades like wind and solar, those are terrific entry-level jobs that are critical investments that we need, such as weatherization and retrofitting homes or businesses, but they're entry-level work for those who are not as skilled. And they can maximize the number of jobs with this $5 billion.
Right. And what would you like to see come out of the education issues?
Oh, education. I want to see the necessary investments in public education. While we've done a great job over the last couple of years of restoring some of the funding that was eliminated through this GAP or GEA funds, we've restored a couple of billion over the last couple of years. We still have 50% of our school districts that have less funding than what they had pre-recession. So we've got to do the funding fix. I'm all about really minimizing the number of tests. I think parents are tired, children are tired. While accountability is important, I believe we are over-testing our students, and we're over-labeling them. We're over-labeling too many as failures.
So how would you like to see the testing reduced? Because I know a lot of it is a federal requirement that's tied to a lot of federal funding.
Excellent question. Yes, some of that is federally required, and there's a number of proposals working their way through Congress right now. Some of them talk about alternate years, so in other words, one year you'd test on math, the next year you'd test on English, or that you would just reduce the number of time and the amount. So there's various ways to do it, but one of the things so we need to take some of the high stakes piece out of this for the state tests, and I think the feds are going to help us on that, but we also need to minimize the number of tests tied to the teacher evaluation system, the APPR. Right. So there's the classroom testing, and then there's the state end-of-year testing.
That's certainly going to be a big issue for the governor and for the legislator in the upcoming session.
I'm afraid it's going to dominate the session yet again, which there's a lot to work on, but I do want to make sure that the kids aren't suffering, and we just saw from the polls that were released again today that parents and voters and families are still really feeling the stress and the pressure of this high-stakes testing. Again, accountability is always important, but we can't make the kids feel overwhelmed by this high-stakes pressure.
So how do you also ensure accountability while decreasing tests?
I think some of it is peer review with the teachers, and some of it is making sure that the hearings, when there are teachers that don't belong, you redo the APPR to make sure that peer review is included, and stronger statute to make sure that teachers are counseled out or removed when unnecessary. But tests, one single test at the end of the year isn't really going to tell us whether a teacher is good or bad.
Right.
So I think you can't measure this with a snapshot.
Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.